start with Cy Hersh and his Substack posting a couple of days ago. It wasn't a shock, but he filled in lots of interesting bits of this story. I waited, and not surprisingly, in vain for some reaction from the U.S. media. I didn't see a word. I may have missed it from the New York Times, from the Washington Post, from places where a lot of people look to get some information. So no mention of it. But basically, Seymour Hersh, who is the greatest investigative reporter of my lifetime and has uncovered countless stories, seemingly got some good sources to talk and explained how the U.S. blew up Nord Stream and gave a lot of interesting information. What's notable for me, aside from the complete silence in the United States about this, is first, I haven't seen anybody other than small possible corrections here or there go after the main story. And the kind of flat denial from the White House and from the CIA is hardly convincing or informative, or the flat denial from the government of Norway doesn't mean anything. Nobody went after the substance. A lot of people went after Hersh, but that is par for the course and also meaningless. So I would say that the story is passing muster. It certainly makes sense to me. It has full credibility. It confirms more or less what I believe from the first moment, that of course the U.S. did it. Who else? And that it was a terrible thing to do. Now, what's interesting, I think, for us is to watch really what happens in Germany after this. This is the only place where I think this story is of real direct political interest enough that it can stir something. Because after all, the U.S. blew up a critical piece of infrastructure, absolutely critical for the German economy. It's a little weird that Germany's main ally directly contributed to the destruction of German economic well-being. And at least some Bundestag members on the left and the right outside of this coalition are asking, well, you got to tell us at this point. And I don't expect that to go away. So that's what I take away to be the main interesting follow-up is, what does this mean inside Germany? And will it have political legs? And my guess is that it will, that you can't just make this go away. And it's pretty clear there's no denying the U.S. culpability at this point.
I agree with all of that. Briefly, if this was untrue, I would have expected personally that the director of the CIA, who is, one of the key decision makers, somebody at that level would be coming out and saying this is untrue. So we've not had that kind of denial. And about Germany, which is a country which I have some knowledge of, I think you're absolutely right. I think this is a long fuse. This is a bomb with a very long fuse, but it could play out. And for the record, reports today in the British media that the relationship between the Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, and his foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock, has completely broken down. Apparently, they're not even talking to each other. Scholz is furious with her. They're careful not to mention Nord Stream, and I'm not suggesting anything. I'm not suggesting Baerbock was in any way involved in that. But apparently, Scholz is very angry that Baerbock was intriguing, as he would see it, with other Western allies about getting tanks to Ukraine, something that Scholz didn't want to do. And he's discovered that Baerbock was going around urging other NATO states to do it. And I mean, there's already tensions there, and I suspect this is going to increase those tensions even more.
Anyone not speaking with Baerbock is a friend of mine. That's all I can say. unbelievable, the complete and total collapse of German diplomacy, and her militarism is beyond any boundaries and any sense of Germany's real interest. I think the sooner the better. There is a split between them. Absolutely, this is good for the world. You sense, although obviously Scholz is very wobbly and maybe without the capacity to draw a real line, he is pretty clearly reluctant on what is this escalatory moment right now, and that's good. She is clearly the opposite, and that is a danger. And what is interesting about Hersh's story, of course, is he exactly explained who the small group that runs U.S. policy really is. Not that it's a surprise, but Blinken, Newland, Sullivan, and Biden. These are the four neoconservatives in charge. It's interesting to me. I had some outreach with the congressional people. Let's just say they said it's impossible, this story, it's false. I wrote back, I said, well, I think it's true. It makes perfect sense. I explained some things. No, it can't be true. I said, no, it actually really is. No, I would have known. And I said, they're lying to you. Actually, Hersh is quite interesting in one of the details, explaining how bureaucratically it was that they decided not to tell Congress on this. But what's interesting from the U.S. point of view, we have a Republican-led lower house right now. They could take interest in this. They could ask the question, who in Congress was informed about this? My guess is, from what I can see, the answer is nobody, actually. Not only from what Hersh says, but even from the interactions that I'm having. If that's the case, first, it wouldn't be a surprise. This is a typical CIA operation. But it also could, even strangely enough, in the neocon heart of the empire, have implications, because there is an opposition-led House right now, and that could matter, actually, when I come to think about it.
I mean, what I would simply say about that is this. I mean, many people in Congress may support the war with Ukraine. They might want escalation, but I can't believe that they will be happy to have been completely kept out of the loop. I mean, these people, that's not, unless American Congress people are completely different from politicians and MPs and members of parliament in other countries. This goes so much against their prerogatives, I would have thought, that, whatever feelings they might have about the war, I can't imagine that they would like this.
I think you're right. I wrote back in one communication, you've been lied to. And I did not hear a response, no, I haven't. I think I heard somebody thinking about that reality on the other side from the silence that followed. I think this was pretty brazen. I don't think Jake Sullivan's the most talented of all senior players in the administration. And I think he cooked this up, and I think he kept Congress out of the loop. And I think there will be some questions raised.
Anyway, let's not focus too much on this, because we can discuss all this forever. But I mean, it's part of all this issue is part of a bigger, larger sort of story, and we discussed that in our previous program, and the fact that we're drifting ever deeper into a confrontation now with the Russians. We don't seem to be able to get off this escalator. I mean, are you worried about this? I mean, are people in the United States worried about this? Are the forces now coming forward speaking out against it. I sense there are actually. I think that you're starting to see some pushback. But what is your feeling?
Well, look, once every couple of months, we have at least an opinion survey. It's just about the only time that there's actually some sense of where the public is on this. And the answer is that on the Republican side of the rank and file in the country, there's opposition to the war. There's a feeling that the U.S. has already done too much. There's certainly no groundswell of support for any further escalation. On the Democratic side, I think there's basically division because Democrats follow their president. The president says we should do it, but people are very uneasy about it. What is overwhelmingly the case, though, not surprisingly, is none of this depends on public opinion in its motivation. This is not coming from a groundswell of public support for Ukraine or anything like that. No one's asking the public anything about this. Of course, if the public will turns against it, that will have some effect in Congress, modest as it is. The fact that the Republican base doesn't want more, and the fact that one of the two houses in the US is Republican-led is significant, actually. You can't openly call for large appropriation anymore. Biden's going to have to find other ways to stick in more money or weapon systems, things that he can do by executive order. There's no instinct to raise a public debate on this. Now, what's happening in the senior reaches of politics? Of course, we know there that there's a heated debate between sensible people, starting with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley, who says this is the moment where we can stop what is right now on a losing path and get something, versus the hardliners who are not only ideologically dug in, but now politically in a deep hole, obviously. And that starts with the president, but especially a foreign policy team that he hired. As you've been rightly referring to, this RAND study is quite interesting. Not only is it basically sensible, but obviously someone asked RAND to say to the political leadership, you're digging a hole that is very deep and not good for American interests. So at the elite level inside the executive branch, there's no great enthusiasm about anything that's happening, that to say the least. There is a division between the neocons and, I would say, more realist, sensible people. Congress, I think we have learned, is pretty much out of the loop on this right now. But, as I've just said, the Republicans in both chambers are not going to be enthusiastic. This is definitely a period of rapidly diminishing support and interest, and I give it a few more months to play out. Of course, a lot will depend on the battlefield and all of this desperate attempt by Britain or by Zelensky and others to maximally commit Western advanced weapon systems and the rest as fast as they can is the game right now.